Hello and welcome to the Night Parade podcast, where we shine light on the dark. Each episode, we present to you a case on all things true crime and paranormal. We'll be your host for this evening. My name is Glenn.
And my name is Jan.
And we work together here with the team at Night Parade Studio to bring you this show. I just want to take this moment to thank those of you who have been watching us since the beginning. Night Parade Studio is a little passion project we started as a group of friends. We're all doing this in our spare time, and we really do appreciate the support we can get.
Yes, really. Thank you for those of you guys who've been supporting.
Yeah.
And for those of you tuning in with us for the first time, first off, welcome to the Night Parade. Yep. This is our second episode into our Season 3 of Paranormal Activities. I know you guys are still in the shock from our last case, which was about the possession of Michael Taylor. That was one crazy case.
Yeah, it was.
Right? But brace yourselves, because this next case is also truly terrifying. A fair warning, this is another controversial story dealing with mental illness, such as dementia, as well as a mysterious and inexplainable death. This is the haunting of Estefania, Gutierrez, Lazaro. Let's get started.
Let's do it.
All right. If you have seen the movie on Netflix called Veronica, then you've already heard of this case. This is the original case that Veronica was based on. As you'll see, though, there are many details that are different from the real story. I'm sure that they did this for cinematic effect, and I think it was a pretty good horror movie. I think so it was, because we watched it, I think it was.
It's pretty good.
But I also think that the original story is a bit more scary because of the details that are actually in it, and just knowing that it actually happened.
Yeah.
Right? I don't usually get scared from, hearing actual stories or, such as, paranormal activities and stuff, but this one really just stood out. Out of every story.
Oh yeah, this one is terrifying.
Sure. Yeah. This is also the first case in which paranormal activity is actually documented by the authorities. The police would never ever write a a case about a paranormal activity unless, in this case, they were part of it somehow, right?
Yeah.
This is also one of the most infamous cases in Europe, and it actually comes from Spain. A lot of the information available on this case is in Spanish, so we apologize if there are many mistranslation or mispronunciation of names and other words. As we've stated, this is another controversial story because the girl had reportedly been suffering from hallucinations and seizures as well. This was supposedly after performing a seance at school, trying to contact her friend's deceased boyfriend who had died 6 months prior. This is also known as the Vallecas case, I believe. As usual, this is just going to be a general overview of the story based on the information that we were able to find for you guys. Those links will be down in the description below, available for you guys to check it out yourselves.
Heck yeah, be sure to check that out. The movie is pretty.
It's pretty
crazy.
Good. Yeah, it's actually pretty good. So make sure you guys check out Veronica as well.
So let's get to the story.
Right, let's go.
Our story begins in Madrid, Spain. Estefania lived on Luis Martin Street in apartment number 8 with her parents and her 6 siblings. Her parents were named Maximo and Concepcion. Her and her siblings went to a school close to home, and they were all exceptional students. Up on the screen is a picture of Estefania. She looks pretty different from the person portrayed in the movies.
Yeah, definitely.
Veronica was based on this girl, and it's pretty horrifying what happened to her. So this is a picture of her apartment, and this is a picture of her bedroom. Estefania herself would be the one to take care of her other siblings when they needed help. They cared for their grandpa who had dementia. Over time, as his dementia got worse, he began to say a lot of things that were hostile and cruel. A lot of these things would upset Estefania. Dementia is defined as a loss of cognitive function such as thinking, remembering, and reasoning. It affects a person's daily life and activities. A lot of people with dementia can't control their emotions, and oftentimes their personalities change. Yeah, it's a horrible disease that really warps the mind and can completely change a person, and it's usually in a very hostile and evil way, such as this case.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's for those of you who who live with someone with dementia at home, it really can take a toll on you.
Yeah. Because I mean, you're taking care of someone who was once close to you, and suddenly they're like forgetting you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a pretty sad case.
It's heartbreaking. Yeah. Despite all of this, the children still loved that grandpa, and spent time with him. So Marianella was one of Estefania's sisters. She remembered their grandpa for being affectionate and caring, and this was very hard for her to deal with. She never believed that their grandpa actually hated them, and said that it was just the dementia talking.
Mm-hmm.
In the early 1990s, the family gathered around their grandpa's bed as he was showing signs of beginning to pass on. Conception actually saw this moment as a sign of relief rather than a tragedy. All those years taking care of him had really taken a toll on her. Yeah. Yeah, as we said, it's really hard for people, like the family members of people who have that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a horrible disease. Before he died, he leaned close towards Estefania and whispered, "If I cannot harm you in this life, I will do it in the next one." Those were his final words before passing away.
Wow.
Can you imagine if your grandpa said that to you?
Oh no.
That's awful.
That would have scarred me for life.
That's horrifying.
Oh Jesus Christ.
After the grandpa's death, the family's life went back to normal, or at least to the best that they could. Things started to change around them. A few months later, Estefania was at school, a typical day, when suddenly she noticed her friend brought a Ouija board into school. It was in March of 1990, and Estefania was 16 years old. Estefania really wanted to give the Ouija board a try and see it. After seeing it, they decided to do this with a few other kids from class, and they tried to contact the soul of a friend's dead boyfriend who had recently passed away in a terrible motorcycle accident. Estefania and her friends snuck away to play with the Ouija board. There were 3 people controlling the board, including Estefania. Marianella was also there, and she was acting as a lookout. So the kids gathered around and formed a circle around the board. A planchette is the teardrop-shaped tool used on the Ouija board in order to select the letters. They didn't have one, so instead they used a glass cup.
Yeah.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know what a Ouija board looks like, it's basically it's a board with the alphabet, so the letters,
Right.
and then numbers as well. And
Yeah.
it'll usually have a yes or no, and then I believe a sun and a moon.
Yeah, on each side. Yeah. A sun on one side and a moon on the other. Yeah. Actually, my friends and I were dumb enough to play with the Ouija board one time.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I haven't encountered such as, anything like poltergeist or anything like that wants to harm me. But, I've seen a fair share amount of, let's say spirits.
Mm-hmm.
Back when I was living in the Philippines and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was a pretty crazy experience playing with the Ouija board, especially doing it in a cemetery. So
in a cemetery.
Yeah, because our school back then was like next to a cemetery. Like literally, like if you hop over a fence, it's a cemetery.
Wow.
So yeah, it's kind of like the hangout spot for everyone who cut class.
And you guys just decided to play Ouija board there.
Yeah, sorry, Mom. But
Anything happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's at first like, I thought when it moved, like somebody moved it, and anyone in the group swears that they did not touch it or move it or anything like that. And when that glass moved like not even an inch, we just booked it out of there back to the school type thing.
Okay, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and this was around like Undas, which is the Day of the Dead, and in the Philippines.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, it was a pretty crazy experience, and that was a long time ago.
Wow.
It was fun. It was fun.
That's interesting. Okay. So back to the story.
Yeah.
The glass began to move as they asked the questions to the board.
Yeah.
It said that they began to communicate with a spirit named Veronica. The teens believed that they felt an evil presence. Estefania began to ask more questions, and the spirit answered back, claiming to be her recently deceased grandpa. At this point, Marianella decides to check on them and tries to open the door, but it's stuck. She begins to panic and goes to find the teacher for help. She comes back with Dolores Molina, and it took both of their full body weights combined to push the door open.
Wow.
Yeah, and as soon as they broke through, they saw the kids playing with the Ouija board. Suddenly, the glass cup they were playing with also fell and shattered on impact with the floor. When this happened, smoke rose up from the shards of the glass, and Juan, who was a friend that was with them, he swears he saw the smoke enter Estefania's nose and mouth. He also noticed how the blinds were flowing, as if there was a breeze in the room. Yeah, Dolores Molina was so traumatized after that she decided to leave the school that same day and never come back.
Oof. I mean, that was the teacher, right?
That was the teacher.
Okay, yeah. I would have done the same thing. She was like, these kids. No
messing
way.
with something here.
Yeah, this school better get haunted in a couple days.
She's seen it coming.
She was like, I don't want no part of this. You know, I'm out. Same day, quitting the same day. No 2 weeks. That's too long of a time. You know?
Yeah,
she was out of there. It's pretty crazy.
Juan found later that there was a mark on his chest that looked like he had been kicked by someone wearing a heavy boot.
What?
Yeah. Before, Estefania was a cheerful and bubbly person, but after playing with the Ouija board, she had become withdrawn and distant. She started to suffer from insomnia, and she was able to sleep. She started to suffer from insomnia, and when she was able to sleep, she had very vivid and disturbing dreams. Shadowy creatures called out to her and haunted her in these nightmares. She became more irritable and sensitive. Everything seemed to upset her. These dreams turned to hallucinations and started seeing humanoid forms with no faces.
Oh, Jesus.
These creatures wore long, dark clothing and tried to get her to follow them. She began to see these things all day, even during the middle of the day. They would stand in corners and hallways, whispering to her to come with them.
Wow.
That is creepy.
That's crazy. That's scary. Dude, I would not even come back to school if I seen something like that.
Something like that,
You
right?
know, in the hallway.
Things started to get worse for Estefania, however. She started having catatonic episodes where she would go into a trance-like state for 15 to 20 minutes at a time, just staring. Yeah, she wouldn't react to anything, except every once in a while she would laugh for no apparent reason. Yeah.
Damn.
She started to see them coming closer and closer to her. She saw tall, gaunt men huddled in a group, shaking hands, repeating, "Come, come to us." She started making strange, guttural noises and babbling in a language her family didn't recognize. She also saw a vision of the Virgin Mary with a slight smile on the wall in front of her bed. She started to get angry and lash out for no reason, howling and growling and barking. She began to turn against her siblings, attacking them in a violent rage. She started having epileptic seizures, which could have been passed down from her mother, since she also suffered from these seizures. During some of these episodes, Estefania's body would become completely rigid, and her eyes turned white, and she foamed from the mouth.
Jesus.
As time went by, Estefania's symptoms grew worse and worse. She saw specialists in 4 different medical centers, but none of them could give her a definitive diagnosis. She She showed obvious signs of epilepsy, but she also had other neurological disturbances that didn't fit this diagnosis. For 6 months, she'd get all kinds of tests and scans, but even with all these efforts, no one could give her an effective treatment plan. There began the arguments on if she was actually suffering from a psychotic breakdown or if she was possessed by her recently deceased grandpa.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Her family started to experience strange things as well. Objects in their apartment would start to move around on their own. Appliances and lights would turn on and off on their own. Doors slammed and locked when no one was around. Invisible forces grabbed, shook, and shoved her siblings. The younger ones were pulled by the arms and slammed into the walls.
Oh my Jesus. What the hell?
Whoa. Being slammed into the wall.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. That's like me as a kid, slamming my teddy bear in the wall, holding it by the arm.
Right.
Imagine that, but on people. That is insane. And you can't see who's grabbing it or who's grabbing you.
That's terrifying.
That is terrifying. That's not good.
Yeah. Marianella and Estefania shared a room together, and one night, Marianella woke up and saw her sister levitating from the bed.
Hell no.
If I saw my brother doing that, I'd leave.
I'm out.
I'm out, yeah.
I'm not part of the family no more. Hell no.
When they started to see the shadowy figures moving to the house, and they would hear loud knocking noises through all hours of the day and night. The paranormal activity was much stronger at night, and there were some rooms in the apartment that was worse than others. The bathroom was where the strangest things happened. One day, Estefania went to the bathroom to iron clothes, and as soon as she walked in, she screamed for her mother, who rushed as soon as she heard. She said she saw a shadow, and the iron turned on by itself. Conception went to check the iron. Suddenly, the door slammed behind her and locked, trapping them both. Their father rushed to the bathroom when he heard them both screaming for help. He also found the door was stuck, and just as he was about to kick the door in, it opened by itself, just to see Estefania and Conception huddled on the ground holding each other.
God. It must have been terrifying for the father to see that.
Definitely.
First hearing the scream, and then you just find your wife and your daughter, huddled on the floor. That's...
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Oh my goodness.
One day, one of Estefania's brothers was sitting at the table with his mother. When he ducked just in time as a glass was hurled over his head. It shattered in mid-air right in front of them.
Oh, shoot.
Whoa. Then things began to escalate as Estefania began to say stranger and even morbid things. She told her mother that when she dies, not to invite her father's family to her funeral. She asked to be buried with a picture of her father as well.
Damn.
Wow. When her mother tried to reassure her that she was going to live, Estefania threatened her. She said that she would come back and haunt them if she didn't follow through with her wishes.
Holy crap. It's as if she wants to die, or that she knows that she's going to die.
Yeah. At this point, she seems like she wants to die.
Yeah. And I want to go back to that glass that was hurled at her brother, was it?
Mm-hmm.
For it to shatter mid-air.
Like right in front of them.
Without hitting anything. The force in that glass for it to shatter mid-air is unbelievable.
That's crazy.
It would have been impossible to... Oh, what the heck?
See something like that.
Wow.
As time went on, the paranormal activity started getting worse by the day, and Estefania's epileptic seizures began to grow out of control. In the summer of 1991, Estefania was 18, and she had been suffering from all these terrifying symptoms for over a year. One morning, she told her parents that it was her destiny to die before them. Then she sat beside her sister, Marianella. Suddenly, Estefania lunged at her sister, attacking her, but Marianella was able to dodge in time. And then Estefania landed on the floor and started seizing and foaming at the mouth to the point where she lost consciousness. Wow.
Damn.
When she came to, she didn't remember doing any of that to her sister. So then the day just played out just as normal. The next night, she had another terrible seizure. It was the same situation as last. However, this time Estefania would lose consciousness and she would never wake up. She was then rushed to the local hospital at midnight. Unfortunately, she passed away around 2 a.m. from pulmonary asphyxia caused by the convulsions. After performing an autopsy, doctors were never able to confirm a good reason and labeled her death as mysterious and suspicious.
Wow. That's pretty crazy.
That's pretty crazy.
That's interesting because usually, even after like an autopsy, usually there would be something to point out, like, to lead to a conclusion of her death, right? But this time it's like they don't know for sure. Like, it's they labeled it as mysterious and suspicious. So that's pretty interesting to me, at least.
That is pretty interesting. Yeah.
Because she just it was such a sudden death. So
yeah, definitely. However, things didn't stop after Estefania's death. No, they didn't. The Lazaro family started to experience a series of bizarre events. At first, it was just disembodied voices. The family swear they could hear it whispering, "Mama, Mama," coming from Estefania's bathroom. Often, when they would investigate it, the bathroom would be empty. They would also hear scrapes along the walls, as well as the clouds of cackling laughter coming from the ceiling. Sometimes they would find Estefania's room in a complete mess, with her bed sheets as well as her possessions scattered across the room. Soon the laughter turned to wailing, and loud banging sounds could be heard echoing across the house. Doors began to open by themselves, and lights would switch on and off. Appliances would turn on by themselves as well. Soon the family resorted to placing furniture, even a sofa, in front of doors to keep them closed.
Right.
So then the doors began to burst open, pushing furniture, including the sofa out of the way. One day the door had flung so hard, it knocked down a smiling picture of Estefania. And when her mother reached down to pick it up, she suddenly dropped it in pain. After a closer examination, they would find that the picture had ignited and had burned her mother, causing her to drop it. The picture itself was burned, but the picture frame was not, meaning that it must have somehow burned from the inside.
Wow.
This incident actually happened in the movie, and we're going to throw up a picture side by side of the image from the movie compared to the photo in real life. Yeah. I don't know. I think the real life image is a lot more terrifying than
most definitely a lot more terrifying than that. And for it to burn from the inside of the glass.
Inside, yeah.
That is very, very mysterious.
Like, how can you explain that?
You can't.
That's
I don't
crazy.
know how you could do that. I've never seen that anywhere else except this case.
Yeah, wild.
That's crazy.
This picture is very famous. As we said, this picture is a very famous instance from this case because it was just so unexplainable and truly terrifying.
Yeah.
Soon the family began to see a strange, dark, humanoid creature moving quietly around the house. Estefania's sister actually had an encounter with the dark being, and she describes it here. We heard a whistling sound, like on the other nights, and then a groan near the door. We were so scared we were frozen. It was then we noticed something on the floor. As the lights from the street lights would enter our bedroom and light it up, it was the shape of a man crawling, dragging itself along the floor. He had a black head, no eyes, no mouth, nothing. It was crawling towards us, and we started to scream. It was then that the toys we had on the shelf started to throw themselves violently towards the other wall, one by one, and then we heard bangs and shouts.
Wow. And that creature sounds like it's what Estefania was telling them at first.
Yeah.
that, the guy was like long and
Dark figures.
yeah, dark and no face.
Yeah.
Wow.
And now they're seeing it.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. The Lazaro family had neighbors come over to confirm the strange events, and they did. The neighbors reported seeing shadows skittering along the walls of the home and seeing objects flying through the air, sometimes with enough force to leave marks on the walls.
Oh my Jesus. Imagine being that neighbor who you could just see across the street. When they're in your neighbor's living room, it's just flying couch and stuff.
Right.
That would have been such a sight, dude.
That's wild.
Which leads us to the night of the attack. Back in 1992, Estefania's mother woke up in the middle of the night due to, quote-unquote, pressure on top of me. According to Mrs. Lazaro, I felt a pair of hands grab my feet and then grab my arm. This prompted the family to call the local authorities for the first time about a paranormal event. Police arrived at 2:40 a.m. and were greeted by a terrified family who burst outside talking nonsensically about loud bangs coming from the house, booms, and other noises not made by any of the family members. The 5 policemen that arrived on scene were Chief Inspector of National Police Jose Pedro and Officer Negri and 3 others not to be named. The official police report mentioned that as the authorities approached the house, they heard loud noises coming from the empty porch, and upon entering the home, the door of a closed armory opened. This opened in such an unnatural way that they were all shaken by the scenario. On top of that, a crucified statue of Jesus separated from its cross. Which, I don't know about you guys, I didn't think you could do that. I thought it was, sculpted that way so that Jesus stays on the cross, right?
Yeah, I think it is.
So that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
That's, oh my God.
That is pretty crazy.
And this is all recorded on an official police report. Authorities reported a paranormal activity case, which they really never do, if so, rarely. So this is one of those cases. Furthermore, the police mentioned in their report that we sat with the family. You could hear and see how a perfectly shut cupboard door opened and shut. We checked the door. It was perfect. It moved in, again, a natural way. So they were still shaken up by this. They continued. Moments later, we saw a tablecloth on a small telephone table become stained by a brown substance that the inspector identified as drool-like, which is kind of like poop. if you're asking me, right? Like wet poop. When we checked the bedroom, as they continued, of the house, we saw a wooden cross spun upside down, and the metal cross upon it was again ripped off. This is sounding like a movie in real life, a real horror movie.
This whole thing sounds like a horror movie.
First doors, and then the religious materials, something police will never write in their reports. Mm-hmm. It's really, for them, it's always about the facts, right? After they witnessed that, it was then followed by one of the daughters placing a cross behind the door on a poster. At the same moment, 3 nail marks, scratches, or claw marks appeared on the poster. They saw this happen right in front of their eyes and don't know what to make of it. Nani? Definitely terrifying experience all at once.
Oh yeah.
That is something I do not want to experience in my life, ever. But if I do, cool, I guess.
I would run, dude.
I'm definitely not going to stay there for long. Moving on a later note, one of the officers, Officer Negri, was approached by reporters to do an on-screen interview where he would talk about what he experienced once he stepped into Estefania's bedroom. And here's what he exactly said. Quote, It was a small bedroom with twin beds. The father told us that sometimes when he and his little son were sitting on the bed, his son was picked up and thrown onto the other bed in a flying move.
Whoa.
Like, you know those airplanes that your dad used to do to you when you were a kid? Imagine that and just across the room. He continued, I sat down in the same bedroom to see if anything would happen. We heard a terrible scream behind us, which came from a small balcony. I quickly opened the door and ran out to see if I could see anything, if someone's there. But there was nothing. No fallen stones, nothing. It was 2:30 in the morning, and the noise was dreadful. When I first entered the room, I noticed they had a large wooden crucifix on the wall, and hanging off of it was a pearly crucifix like one children get at their first Holy Communions. There were also I think I still have mine. Anyways, there were also posters. There was also a poster, but a few moments later, the crucifix had been turned upside down, like I mentioned, and the little crucifix that was on it fell on the floor, and the poster and the door had 3 or 4 deep scratches in them, as if someone had clawed through the poster and deep into the door.
Whoa.
Which is scary. If I was there and I was the Officer Negri, I believe, I would not have been able to give this report at all. I would have been home, maybe in a different country already.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I would not stay there for long.
I wonder if these officers were like criticized for like making a report like this.
I mean, you know what? I was also wondering that while we were writing this, and I mean, you know, looking at it, I'm pretty sure they were at some
Probably,
point. You know, they were looked at as maybe
I would
crazy.
expect it, yeah.
Right. So yeah, what do you think?
They probably were, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like thinking about it, like this kind of stuff is not really reported. Like as we keep saying,
right, yeah.
And yeah, I can imagine the other officers would probably laugh at them because they weren't there.
Yeah, that's true, because they didn't experience it, you know. And you know, seeing is to believing. So yeah, if they didn't see it, they don't believe it.
Yeah.
Which leads us to the investigation. After investigating the case, police were shocked when they heard loud noises coming from empty rooms, like we said earlier, even on the porch, which was also empty. Perfectly functioning doors were opening and closing on their own. They also found brown stains, like I said, of goop and a crucifix with Jesus separated from the cross, which I don't think happens on a regular basis. And these are all very alarming things to include in a police report, and they included it.
Yeah.
You know, you know, despite the fact that they might, like you said, be criticized for it. And on screen right now, if you guys are watching on YouTube, is the actual police report, which is in Spanish, and it's not really legible. But even if I can read it, I cannot translate it to you guys. So if you guys can read it and can translate it, you know, we would love to know the word per word. Even though I just said what it said, I still want to know what it says.
Yeah, the direct translation.
Exactly. There you go. Well, now the family began to put their story out in public and asking for help. Tristan Baker is a paranormal investigator who was attracted to this case. He was famous and actually broadcasted some of their investigations, which, you know, gives him a lot of credibility when it comes to paranormal activities, I suppose. Right? Yeah. But Concepcion, the mom, believed every word he said and was convinced that he was going to be able to help him, or help them, the family. He told them that their house was being haunted by a demon named Crapula, which I cannot take serious because of the name. But yeah, named Crapula.
Be careful. Watch out. Hide your kids. Crapula's on the loose.
Oh, man. But in the end, he only served to agitate the activity happening in the house and didn't really help them at all. So I don't know. Is he really good? Like, apparently he's famous for, being that guy. So, in the end, these strings of paranormal events gave the Lazaro family no choice but to leave their home. They moved to Madrid, where they can start a new life. Years later, the family made to public in a report after moving to another house from their old home that the paranormal activity had stopped, and they were able to live or start a new life peacefully.
Yeah, well, that's good for them.
Which is good for them. Yeah. Honestly, no, it is good for them. I'm glad that they were able to get out of it. Yeah. But sadly, my condolences to your loss.
Yeah, it's sad. It's sad, tragic what happened to Estefania.
Right.
But it's good that the family was finally able to move on.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Or to at least start moving on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To what we know.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a couple theories that we can go into when looking into this case. One of the stranger parts of Estefania's story is, as we mentioned, is an unexplainable white smoke that allegedly appeared after her seance. Mm-hmm. Witnesses claim that after the smoke... after the nun had broke the Ouija board, some of the smoke spewed from the shards, and Estefania allegedly inhaled the white smoke through her mouth and nose before she fell into a seizure.
I see.
Yeah, and some people believe that the smoke was representative of a demon, and Estefania unwittingly took the spirit inside of her, subsequently causing a form of possession.
Interesting.
So that definitely could have been the point of entry for the spirit.
Yeah, most definitely.
Just messing with the Ouija board.
Yeah,
it's pretty dangerous stuff.
Yeah.
Some say that carbon monoxide poisoning caused her seizures, explaining the erratic and strange behavior leading up to her death, giving her normal days and crazy days.
Yeah. So I mean that's one theory that the skeptics have put out there, because they cannot believe that it was a possession. So, I mean, people would always find a rational way to explain something that they don't understand. And
exactly.
Even though it is just a theory, yeah, so that is one of the theories that the skeptics are making to rationalize the case, right? Mm-hmm. Because, if you're a skeptic, obviously you don't believe in that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So this is one way to explain what probably happened. It could be true, it could not be, I'm just trying to bring out both sides of the audiences. And yeah, if you guys are one of those who do not believe in these type of things, that's fine. It's always good to hear from the other side because there's always bias that's going on between two sides. Always bias. Yeah. But moving on from that, there's this small trivia for you guys. I know you guys love these. Veronica was actually directed by Paco Plaza, who also directed horror series Wreck. Right? Which, if you aren't familiar with, they are some pretty thrilling movies. So, if you guys are fans of horror genre, which you probably are, or else you wouldn't be here, right? I definitely recommend you check those out. All right? Make sure, just maybe even just one.
Yeah.
One of the movies, right?
Yeah, those movies are pretty good. I think, especially Veronica.
Yeah, especially Veronica. I was just gonna say, especially Veronica. Yeah,
it's a good movie. Yeah. So, Jan, do you think that Estefania was actually possessed?
I mean, from the stuff that we had just gone through right now, it sounds like it was possession because like I said earlier, I was able to have the opportunity to work in that field where it's a psychiatric facility, right? And nobody I've never encountered in a year and a half of experience anybody speaking in tongues in like a few days of them being mentally ill, or not just a few days, a long time, but of being there in the facility,
right?
So yeah, and also like the way she hurled that glass and it shattered before it hit anyone. That's pretty insane.
That, unexplainable.
Yeah.
How?
Like how does that? You need so much force in that glass for it to shatter before impact.
It needs to hit something.
Yeah, for sure, right? So that's why I'm saying, in my opinion, it's most likely possession. Not maybe, for me, it's most likely possession.
Yeah.
But the question is, do you think that she, Estefania, came back to haunt the family or the house?
That's hard to say. There were a lot of unexplainable events that happened after she died.
For sure.
Like them seeing the humanoid figure, first of all.
Yeah.
And then even the picture. The picture. Oh man,
that's terrifying. Dude, oh my goodness. I don't know about you, but I would have moved the second.
But that kind of tells me that it might not have been Estefania haunting them. Maybe it was.
That's true.
Maybe it was the spirit that was haunting her.
Right, because the family is saying or describing this figure the way Estefania was describing this figure, which is, tall or long, dark figure with no face. So that shows you maybe it's not Estefania, or maybe Estefania made her visualization or hallucination real to the family by becoming that dark figure.
Oh, maybe.
That's so food for thought.
Yeah. But how big of a role do you think mental illness played in the story?
I don't think it played that big of a role, if it did play a role in the story. And if it did, I would go as far as blaming it in depression because of the fact that she's suffering through her grandma, I believe, her recent passing. And, as they say, evil spirits latch onto negative energy. And that is one other stronger entrance for the spirit to latch onto Estefania, right? So, yeah. Do I think it played a big role? No. But I did think that it is, a little bit part of it. But what about everyone else? What do you guys think? Do you think she was actually possessed? Do you think that she came back to haunt the house? Or what do you guys think about the mental health or the mental illness that played in this story? Was it really part of it? Or maybe it's the main cause of it? But yeah, let us know down in the comments below because we love reading your comments.
Yeah, we want to know what you guys think about this story. It's some pretty interesting stuff.
It's a great story that I didn't want to miss. This is a good story. I like this one.
It's interesting. Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Yeah.
So, that is the case of Estefania Gutierrez Lazaro, a mysterious death after conducting a seance that went horribly wrong. A horrible, haunting case that her family won't soon be forgetting. We hope we were able to shine some light for you guys today.
And if you guys enjoyed today's episode, make sure to drop a like, comment, and subscribe, please. It really does help us out.
Yes.
Just give it 5 seconds. Or not, it doesn't matter. But please do it. So, with that being said, we'd like to welcome you guys to the Night Parade. Again, my name is Jan.
And my name is Glenn, and that's right. Welcome to the Night Parade.